Hey folks, Real Honesty with Jar Mifflin. I'm Jar Mifflin. This is another edition of a Monday Night war, so to speak, between Raw and Nitro from a particular date where I take one Raw episode from that date and a Nitro episode from that date. Whether Raw's longer or Nitro's longer, I compare the two and see which one was the best of that week. And I'm still in 1997, so a 20-year reflection on the Raw and Nitro episodes from December 29th, 1997. Now, I apologize if I seem a little bit tired. I just got done working a 14-hour shift, but I just wanted to record this because I managed to watch these two episodes at work. That's how slow it was. Great job by me. But anyway, so I'm going to review Raw first. That seems to be a tradition. Then I review Nitro. And I just want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. And let me know if you want me to continue doing these. I mean, I will review every single Raw episode from 1993 starting in a few days because we're near the end of 2017. So it'll be 25-year reflections on all the Raw 1993 episodes. But let me know if you want me to continue these Raw Nitro comparisons. I won't be, obviously can't do Thunder yet. Thunder and SmackDown because Thunder isn't on the network yet. Hopefully it will be. But anyway, Raw episode 240. And this is where Raw is going to go out with a bang. And this, a famous, infamous moment. This was the week after Triple H had beat Shawn Michaels in a match for the European Championship. You know, the Christmas one where they, fooled around everything. Gross. And where Shawn played the game. Gross. Where they joked around everything and Triple H beat him. But people say that, oh, that was shitting on the European title, which is true, it was. But people say that's just as bad as Finger Poke of Doom. Now, here's why what Triple H and Shawn Michaels did wasn't as bad as Finger Poke of Doom. The European title by that point, even though British Bulldog had done a great job building it up and making it credible. And I'm sorry to go off on a little rant here at first. British Bulldog did a great job making the European title seem relevant. Shawn Michaels had won the European Championship in one night only, and I did a 20-year reflection on that. Please check that out. It was back in September 20th, 1990 specifically, or 1997 specifically. So that was, right around the end of September. But the whole thing is that after Shawn Michaels had won it, he barely defended it. And he'd become WWE champion at Survivor Series 1997 and was a dual champion. Had no reason to defend the championship. So Triple H winning it, okay, they say he was making a mockery of it. Here's why the Finger Poke of Doom was worse. Finger Poke of Doom was worse because it was for the world title, the big title with all that tradition in WCW, and Nash and Hogan doing all that, the finger poke and everything, and Nash shockingly not tearing a quad while he took the finger poke bump, and Hogan, oh dear God, Hogan just had to stroke his ego and everything doing that. That shit on so much tradition. I mean, the European title was a secondary title where I'm not going to say Triple H and Shawn should have done that, but they didn't do it with the main title. So as much as I may not like DX, at least that wasn't the worst thing. Anyway, starts off with the artist formerly known as Goldust dressed as the New Year's baby. Why? God damn it, Russo. Why the hell were you allowed to do this? I mean, I don't know if that was Russo's idea. I mean, Russo had a few ideas that actually worked because the smarter Vince McMahon actually took them and reshaped them and everything. But whoever's idea was to have the artist formerly known as Goldust as a New Year's baby, you're a fucking idiot. Sorry, it was disgusting and everything. And oh God, Goldust just doing this weird promo and everything. But he said he was going to enter the 1988 Royal Rumble. And by the way, I replayed the clip 3 times just to make sure I heard it right. 1988 Royal Rumble. I mean, I know that you and your dad competed at the 1991 Rumble, but come on, Dustin, you're better than that. Anyway. Austin brings a porta potty down, beats up Goldust, I'm just going to call him Goldust, and throws him in the porta potty, stuns him and throws him back in the porta potty and tips it over. I mean, in Austin kind of typical promo, 1998 is going to be the year of Stone Cold, where I'm going to whoop more ass and show more, and show 2 fingers and everything, and you know which fingers, and I'm not going to try to do a Steve Austin impression, but the whole thing is, crowd was on fire, great stuff, really, 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 really nice, and we kept having talking. There was 20 to 25 minutes of match time on about a 90-minute episode of Raw. I mean, seriously, I know that a lot of episodes open up with talking here, but they got 3 hours, and even then, they still have some long matches at this point. The longest match might have been the main event, and that was 8 minutes, maybe 7, 8 minutes. Anyway, so that was really, really long. Austin throws Goldust in the porta potty, everything tips it over. And then Los Barriquas and DOA in a Long Island Brawl. I hated this feud. I hated these factions. I hated DOA in particular because they had the Harris Nazi brothers. I mean, Brian Lee I didn't mind at all. Actually, he was fine. I think he was in this. I think he was the other guy. Crush was no longer part of it, or was no longer part of it because Kane had beaten him up, and I believe had driven him right out of WWE, and he had gone to WCW because him and Wrath, who actually would, was Brian Clark, would form Chronic soon after. I mean, I think in late 99, early 2000. But the whole point here is that, and I think actually Brian Adams became part of Team NWO because everybody became part of the NWO. Even I never became part of the NWO. The NWO would have folded if I had ever gone anywhere near that goddamn faction. But yeah, Los Barricos, good wrestler. Savio Vega in particular, very underrated worker. Hated the gimmick because they were treated like jokes. And in DOA, sorry, I mean the Bikes were more over than these guys, especially the Harris brothers. Again, fucking Nazis. That's the problem. I'm sorry, you got a Nazi tattoo on you. You're a fucking Nazi. But it was quick. I hated this feud because it went on for months. This feud had already been going on since like July. I don't mind long-term feuds if they're interesting. This wasn't interesting. DOA wins, cool, whatever. Triple H says he's injured and can't defend the European title against Owen Hart, which was supposed to be in the main event, and runs down Taker, and then you had spoopy music and everything, too spoopy, and suddenly there's a casket, and then Shawn Michaels pops out of the casket or whatever, which ironically the casket would be his downfall about 3 weeks later, but. Man, Shawn was coked out of his motherfucking mind here. My God, Shawn was coked out of his mind. But, hey, Shawn, they made breast jokes about China because China had gotten implants, and I don't necessarily find DX all that funny, but this was pretty funny. I mean, the breast jokes they were making. I'm a sucker for stupid jokes, and at times DX hit some home runs. A lot of times they weren't good. I still say NWO was leagues better than DX, and that's fine if other people disagree. I don't know what you're smoking. Kidding. We all have our different preferences. You guys are all cool. And Commissioner Slaughter comes down. I like Sergeant Slaughter as a commissioner. Comes down, makes a match between Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart. Cool. And for the WWF Championship. Even better. Kama Mustafa and Shamrock, it was okay, quick submission. Shamrock makes Kama Mustafa, tap out. It was the right call, and that's excellent wordplay because Kama Mustafa, Godfather Charles Wright, do you get it? Do you get it? Do you? I'm just kidding, sorry. I don't want to get that close to the camera. Rock comes down, runs down everybody, and starts to kind of take over as leader of the nation. It builds to his feud with Shamrock, where they're going to have a match at the Royal Rumble, and says, oh, you're going to take on Farouk next week. Hey, Farouk, everybody, let's go. Ooh, little tension and everything, and then Rocky would just, of course, Dwayne would display his big Johnson, and, I'm just kidding, he wouldn't actually do that. That'd be rather disgusting, even in the Attitude Era. But Dwayne, of course, The Rock, would eventually turn on Farouk. Gross. And become leader of the nation domination shortly after Mania 14. And then Vince briefly reflects on 1997, promises a great year in 1998, despite the fact that Gerald Briscoe was there. I'm sorry, Gerald Briscoe is one of the premier wrestlers as far as tag team wrestling. Him and Jack Briscoe were great. He just needs to be a little less of a sensitive bitch when it comes to Wes Briscoe, who's shit in the ring. Anyway. Then you have Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher. Hated Brian Christopher. Absolute garbage in the ring. Made Eric Watts seem credible. And Brian Christopher actually could have done pretty well if he hadn't, had the most annoying laugh on the face of the planet. And been just a massive egotist. I mean, good God. For any skill that guy had, he just never seemed to understand it. But they faced Taka Michinoku and Georgie Animal Steel, who came out of retirement. And the match was over before it began. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It wasn't any good. Yeah, Brian Christopher was shit. Road Dogg versus Cactus Jack. You had Dude, Mankind, and Cactus Jack cut some promos or whatever, and Cactus Jack makes his appearance. You had Road Dogg and Billy Gunn dressed up like, like weird hockey players. I mean, they were pucking crazy, of course. Excellent wordplay again. There was a quick chair shot, and it ended up causing a DQ. A DQ got caused soon after. Vicious chair shot. Foley took a lot of chair shots. And I think Road Dogg might have won. Road Dogg, I mean, I guess it wouldn't have mattered to Road Dogg if he won or lost this, because wins and losses don't matter. The fact that you were probably the most successful of the Armstrong family and you have that attitude, your dad probably would have slapped the shit out of you. But then again, who am I to blame somebody for being a corporate stooge because he pissed away a lot of his damn money and had to come crawling back to the company? I know I'm going a little bit off on a tangent, but Road Dogg's creative on SmackDown is getting to be kind of shit. Oh wait, it is shit. They need, if Road Dogg is in charge of creative on SmackDown still, they need to remove him and put somebody else there. Not Laurinaitis, not anybody. Put somebody good in charge. Anyway, Funk returns as Chainsaw Charlie. There was this weird box that kept moving and everything. And Funk. And I mean, I love Terry Funk, but Chainsaw Charlie thing was stupid. You had Sable. Kevin Kelly interviewing Sable. So what I think of Sable. Sable's a fucking skank that never belonged in wrestling. And she never did. Sure, she got big ratings. Okay, if any of you guys watching this are fans of her, great. I'm not going to fault you guys for that. I hated Sable. She was an embarrassment to the wrestling business. And Marc Mero comes out, and they pretty much implied an abusive relationship. This is actually probably the most personality that Marc Mero ever showed, or ever was at least allowed to show as Marc Mero. When he was trying to be bad, he was having fun and everything in WCW. This is probably, again, the most personality he was allowed to show as Marc Mero. Apparently Marc Mero's a really nice guy, and that's very good, and he seems to be doing motivational speaking stuff. And he was certainly a good athlete, I will say that much. They cut the legs out from under him quickly in WWE, even though he was making quite a bit of money. And that was Vince's fault. It wasn't Mero's fault. But yeah, Sable, hated Sable, just couldn't stand her. Tom Brady, the Italian jobber, came down and got beat and thrown out of the way and got pages of the WWE magazine with Sable stuffed in his trunks and in his mouth. Weird. Just weird stuff. And then Kane with Paul Bearer, a whole bunch of people were going to beat him up. Headbangers, DOA, who don't fucking matter. Kane could have set them on fire because they're Nazis. Well, two of them, the Harris boys, not the other one. And Scott Taylor, who later becomes Sky 2 Hotty, we're all in the ring. We're going to beat up Kane and everything, and then Taker comes down. This is right after Taker and Kane had fought, or I think Taker had gotten punched out by Kane or something like that, but he refused to fight his brother. And that was like the previous week. So what happened is, Kane's there, and then Taker comes down, and does the pyro and everything, and lets that come up, and faces off against Kane. Suddenly they start punching everybody out. They face off, and then Taker leaves the ring because he will not fight his brother. And they did such a fantastic build towards that. And Russo wanted to blow through it by having Taker chokeslam Kane through the announcer's table soon after. Seriously, the fuck, man. Anyway, thank God cooler heads prevailed, and they had the slow build to that they did. New Age Outlaws, Yell at Cold, and Chainsaw Charlie, and Cactus Jack run them off, whatever. Cornette, State of Wrestling in 1998, brilliant. 1998, yeah, I said that right. I almost pulled a Goldust there. Gross. Rips on WWE, ECW, WCW, talks about the tradition of wrestling. Yes, Cornette stuck in the past. I admit that. I admit that. He likes things the way they were. We all like things the way they were. I can watch some of these Monday Night War episodes, some of these older pay-per-views, and really enjoy them a lot better than the current ones, even if the wrestling in a lot of the ones now is better. Because rose-tinted glasses and everything stuff back when I was, younger. Like, I was only 16 when this stuff happened. I was almost 17 by the time these episodes happened. But anyway, the Cornette shoe was great. I highly recommend you check it out. I can't do it justice. The guy, just such a great way with words and everything. And then Sunny is here and she's gone. Mike Tyson plug. They're negotiating to have him come in at Mania. That was a pretty good move because it got him a lot of attention. And then Owen Hart versus Shawn Michaels. WWE title was a brawl. Big fight feel at least. And Triple H caused a DQ. It was still the best wrestled match on the damn show, even though they were cramming probably about 20 minutes worth of spots into about 7. But still, it was pretty damn enjoyable. And yeah, it was still it probably, given the build of some of the angles, I did enjoy it. But if you want to watch stuff for wrestling, I mean, Raw was not the episode for you to watch. I mean, even Nitro, this Nitro that I'm going to talk about, wasn't the best for wrestling, but it still had more matches in 2 hours than this one did. I mean, they were at 5 matches for Raw in a 90-minute show, and this Nitro episode went 93 minutes, and it was ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, Raw might get a C+, something like that. I mean, just because they did advance at least a few angles, and there were a couple good progressions, but the way it was such a car crash thing. Nitro, and this is the Nitro episode 120 that took place right after Starrcade, and I could count on about 80 hands how many times the announcers, Hogan, Bischoff, J.J. Dillon, Mean Gene Okerlund, anybody, I'm sure fans, I'm sure grips, I'm sure cameramen were saying that Nick Patrick did a fast count when it was actually 1, 2, 3 at Starrcade. Nick Patrick was supposed to do a fast count, but Nick Patrick, for whatever reason, didn't do that, and it looked bad. And I don't know if it was Nick Patrick that was told not to do that. I don't have a clue. I don't have a cross thing to say about Nick Patrick. It was probably Hogan and his ego and everything, because Hogan always has to stroke his own goddamn ego, because that's the only way he, can freaking stay relevant. I mean, that and being horribly, horribly racist. And that's fine if you guys want to forgive Hogan. I'm not necessarily certain I can. But they had recaps, stills of Starrcade, 97. Oh, Sting's a champion. They're dropping balloons and celebrating and everything. Larry Zbyszko gets a huge pop because he beat Eric Bischoff at the pay-per-view to gain control of WCW back to the NWO. And then they waffled back and forth on that. And then Ric Flair actually beat Bischoff, I think, a year later on a Nitro, right around that time. I think it was a December 28th, 1998 edition of Nitro. I think it was that one. It was whatever one was right at the end of the year. It was the episode right before the Finger Poke of Doom, and it was right after Starrcade. But anyway, huge pop for Larry Zbyszko. Again, they mentioned Nick Patrick doing the fast count about 80 million times to explain the thing, yet they wouldn't show clips of it. I mean, obviously you had to catch the encore, but it wasn't a fast count. It wasn't a fast count, you dumb fucks. I know they were just doing their jobs and just promoting the story and doing what they could, but they were trying to turn what was the biggest angle they built up, at least in the Bischoff era, at least in the Ted Turner WCW era, and especially the Nitro era. I mean, let's just say that, the Nitro era. That was the biggest angle they ever built. Biggest fucking angle they built, Sting and Hogan. And they chuffed that whole thing up because they overbooked it to goddamn smithereens. And then which drove the stake into the heart of WCW. And then you had Goldberg versus Nash at the following Starrcade, where that, kind of hammered the stake in a little more. And then the Finger Poke of Doom, which just kicked the freaking stake right through the chest. Because WCW should have won that goddamn war, and the fact that they didn't is because of their own stupidity. Anyway, matches. Glacier versus Goldberg, squash, whatever. I mean, Glacier by this point, even though he'd only lost a couple matches, it was already obvious the bloom had been off the rose for him. Larry, of course, saying Goldberg and Mongo come from the same mold. Well, Moldgo. I guess it makes sense that Mongo would be compared to Mold, since I'm sure the Mold from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and by the way, if you know what episode that is, great. I don't remember the episode, but I remember it was Living Mold was probably a better goddamn wrestler than Mongo, and it was a fucking animated character in a silly, badly animated show. Anyway, never liked Mongo. Couldn't stand the fucker at all. He was a horrible announcer. He was a horrible wrestler. I don't know if he's a bad guy. He was just terrible. Anyway, terrible announcer, terrible wrestler. Goldberg beats Glacier quickly, hits him with a spear where it just looked like Glacier suffered massive whiplash. I was like, oh, fuck, is he okay? He's still wrestling now, so good for him. And again, just how many times they said, it was a fast count by Nick Patrick. Fuck you guys, it was not. Anyway, Mean Gene interviews, and he interviewed Bret Hart, and it was basic. He ran down the NWO, WWE, praised the WCW, but that seemed hollow because he wanted to be in WWE. He didn't want to leave the way he did. He used the word scum a lot. And you ran down Hogan. And we should have gotten that feud. And we didn't get that feud because Hogan was scared that Bret would take the shine off of him. Even though I think Bret would have worked with him, Bret would have easily outshined Hogan because here's the difference. By that point, Bret could still really, really wrestle. Hogan in Japan could wrestle pretty damn well because he worked as a heel. In WWE, he couldn't really wrestle all that well. I mean, maybe he could wrestle better on the house shows. There was a 1980 house show match. I think it was a Spectrum or a Madison Square Garden match. Or it might have been Boston Gardens. The whole point is it was one of those against Bob Backlund when Bob Backlund was champion. It was 1980 during Hogan's first run in WWE, and it was on Hogan's unreleased collection, but I think it might even be on the network in one of the old schools. But my God, it was a really good match because it was different to see that side of Hogan. Now Hogan wasn't a great worker, but he was a great showman. Anyway, so it's a damn shame we never got Bret versus Hogan. This is a lot of rants on this one. I'm probably going to go almost a full 33 minutes, or at least close to it. Watch now. I'll be done in 25. You had Raven promo, and you had the flock and the crowd and everything, and they were all in the front row. And then Raven said, and Raven had been, I guess Benoit had beaten Saturn at Starrcade 97, I think, if I recall. I don't recall all the matches, so forgive me if I forgot about that, but I know they've been feuding. Benoit, the Horsemen had been disbanded, by Flair, even though they were all teaming together still. And they seemed to not know what to do with Benoit. I mean, they didn't know what to do with his hair. He had to mull it over. Raven says, and I cringed when I heard this. I cringed and I laughed at the same time because he says, Chris Benoit is a masochist. He has serious psychological damage and he insists on receiving punishment every week. Raven, you were only off by about 9.5 years. In all seriousness, of course, Benoit did what he did to his family, but just knowing what he did to his family, hearing that even back then, you're like, oh, dear God. Dear God, Raven, were you a prophet? Are you a prophet? Anyway, you had Benoit versus Van Hammer or Hammer. I don't know what he was called. I don't know why Van Hammer was in a fishnet top. I didn't mind Van Hammer as a worker, actually. He was a pretty damn solid worker. And Benoit dived into the flock first. I mean, and they threw him out, and he got sent to the ring, and it was quick, and the flock jumped in when Benoit had Van Hammer in the crossface. And Mongo runs in, the crowd erupts because Baltimore apparently has, passionate wrestling fans, some that were lobotomized because they're popping for Mongo. But whatever, if you guys are cool, whatever. I'm not going to knock the city of Baltimore. You guys have been through enough tough stuff as it is. I just don't understand why people pop for Mongo. I just don't. Me personally, I just don't. And sorry, by the way, guys, if my throat seems a little dry. Again, 14-hour shift. I apologize. Anyway, Mean Gene interviews Ric Flair, and Flair says at one point, Diamond Dallas Page, you're my kind of man. Gross. That's what doing it with Flair, I guess, is like. Whatever. If you swing that way, cool. Praises Bret. I just can't get off you. Gross, Flair. What is wrong with you? Once Face Bret had sold out. Yeah, it was weird. I mean, it was weird that was the first match, but I guess the no-compete clause meant that Bret couldn't actually technically wrestle in a match for a couple months, but still. Ultimo Dragon faced Eddie Guerrero. Eddie attacked Ultimo during the entrance, and then beat him down, and then got trapped, and then got put in the Dragon Sleeper. And Eddie tapped out. And, oh, by the way, it was a Cruiserweight title match, and Ultimo Dragon won. It was about 2 minutes. It might have been a minute and a half. It was amazing. I'm like watching, I'm like, okay, wait, what? I mean, what the fuck? It was ridiculous. But it was cool. I mean, I like both guys. Eddie, I miss Eddie. I miss Eddie to this very day. It's really, really sad that Eddie passed away like he did. Obviously, he did have his substance issues, and even though he beat those, it wore his body down too much. And Ultimo, one of my favorite workers, somebody that really vastly underrated. Great in Japan, great in Mexico, great in WCW. Should have been used better in WWE, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, I don't think he was going to stick around for more than a year anyway. Then Hogan and Bischoff, they did more stuff about the Starrcade controversy and the fast count, and it wasn't a fast count, for fuck's sake. Moving on. Mortis versus DDP. DDP had beat Curt Hennig for the U.S. title just the previous night at Starrcade 97. Mortis, really good worker. Canyon and DDP apparently were really good friends. They were part of the Jersey Triad, and apparently they've been friends anyway. And that's really, really good. It's a damn shame that Canyon took his life the way he did, that he felt that there was no other way to cope. Also, really damn shame if he was made fun of because of his lifestyle. Apparently, he was gay, and I sure hope he wasn't ostracized or, blacklisted from the business because of that, because the guy was an incredible worker. It didn't matter if he wanted to sleep with guys instead of sleep with women. Who cares? It didn't matter if he wanted to sleep with guys, like if he desired. The whole point, I'm not saying decided, I feel bad for saying that, but anyway, the whole point is if he swung a certain way, so what? It's just a shame that he died. Decent match. Great Diamond Cutter counter. It looked like, Mortis was going for the flatliner and everything, and DDP just, bam, just the way. I can't do the Diamond Cutter thing. The Diamond Cutter better than the RKO, and I will fight you if you disagree. Orton has made the RKO his own, but to me, DDP with the Diamond Cutter, better variations. Not that Orton isn't really good with the RKO, but to me, Diamond Cutter will always be better. JJ Dillon and Mean Gene. Mean Gene got a lot of goddamn TV time on this. Basically, JJ Dillon said he spoke with Sting, and that if Sting says to remove any doubt, he'll face any member of the NWO for the WCW title tonight. Disco Inferno versus Booker T. Decent. Good work match, despite the fact Disco Inferno couldn't work out of a paper bag, a wet paper bag. He couldn't work out of a ripped paper bag. He doesn't really know what he's doing. And he's a stooge for you-know-who, so anyway. I never liked Disco. I just never did. He came across like a creep. But anyway, Booker T was really, really cool to see Booker T, getting a singles push here and everything. He was starting to get more of a singles push in 97. And Disco, TV champion, shockingly, Booker hitting the Harlem Hangover kick. Man, that's a deadly maneuver, but really, really good stuff. 1, 2, 3, new TV champion. 2 new champions on this. Really, really good stuff. Really good episode. Despite all the stuff I'm saying about the Fast Count and the Starrcade stuff, this Nitro episode was killing Raw so far. And then Bischoff answers, JJ offers, Hogan versus Sting is on. Great. Okay, main event. Cool. Hennig with Rick Rude versus Chris Jericho. It was nice to see this. It was a bit quick, but it was nice to see this match. Even if it was just brief. It was nice to see young up-and-coming Jericho, veteran Curt Hennig. Wish we could have gotten a full-fledged feud. But that's okay. It was still really, really nice to see this, even if it was just a brief appearance. And then Scott Hall with a typical promo. Survey says, 1 more for the Sporting Wood guys. Wait, I did that wrong. 1 more for the Sporting Goods guys. The good guys. I did that wrong. Whatever. Anyway, whole point is at least Scott Hall didn't sound drunk here. That's good. Scott Hall seems to have cleaned up his life, and that's great. And then you have Buff Bagwell versus Lex Luger. Why are you torturing me? Why? And then, of course, one point, somebody, I believe one of the announcers might have been Shivani, because said, Buff Bagwell calling out the package. Wouldn't be shocked. Buff Bagwell seems like a bit of a freak. I don't like Buff Bagwell at all. I never got, for a guy that was in the business for 10 damn years, 1991 to 2001, I'm not going to talk about his WWE run, I'm just talking about WCW. The guy never evolved to being anything more than a decent performing heel, and that was only when he was put with the right guys in the ring. But unfortunately, he's put with Luger, and this was trash. This was one, it was so rushed. Luger had either beaten Buff by DQ or countout or stuff like that. And then he beat him straight up, and then he knocked Scott Norton off the ring apron, and, torture racked, and Buff Bagwell gave up, and it was bad. Luger won, great, okay, whatever. Fucking murderer of Liz. Anyway, and I'll stick by that. But now we go to Sting versus Hogan, the WCW title rematch from Starrcade 97 the previous night. So all you that bought Starrcade 97, fuck you. We're going to show this match for free, a much condensed version. And it had a big fat feel. It was a big fat, turd, in a punch bowl. But it had a big match feel. It was less than 6 minutes. It was bad. It was just so bad. So goddamn bad. The contest actually, was still going when they went off the air. But I remember seeing what the finish was. And the finish was all screwy and everything, where Hogan had held the tights or whatever and pinned Sting, and he was a new champion. And then the title got held up. And it led to a match of Super Brawl, a rematch of Super Brawl, to determine the ultimate, the official WCW champion. Sting won, then held it for about 2 months, so he lost it to Savage, who then lost it to Hogan 24 hours later. It made all the build to Starrcade meaningless. The title change happened after the episode ended, as I said. And it was such shit. One, Hogan dominated quite a bit of the match, but everything was so rushed together. I mean, you could have had one less interview, given 3 more minutes to this match, and maybe it would have been better. Maybe not. I mean, Hogan at this point couldn't really do anything. But yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. Now, that being said, the Nitro episode's a little more memorable. Had a couple good title changes. I'm not saying that Raw was necessarily bad. Despite all the stuff, Nitro, I'll give Nitro a B, a wavering B. Not that kind of B. It probably would have gotten an A had it not been for all this thing. Oh, Nick Patrick did a fast count. No, he fucking didn't, you idiots. I know they were just doing their jobs. But anyway, that's what I gotta say. So thanks for listening to all the rants. Thanks for listening to me review the Raw and Nitro episodes from December 29th, 1997. Do you guys want to see more of these? Leave in the comments. Let me know if there are shows you want me to reflect on, especially shows, for the coming year. Like, obviously they'd be 1988 episodes, 78 episodes, 83, 93, 98, 2003, that kind of stuff, 2008, that kind of stuff. 2013, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to review, but anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments. Thanks for putting up with my voice, as I'm pretty much losing it, so I'm going to end the show. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Twitter links in the description. It's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin, and I will see you soon.